Going? Okay, good evening. This is a meeting of the Freeport Withdrawal Committee at the Freeport High School Conference Room, Thursday, May 15th. It's now 7:40 p.m. We're getting a little bit of a late start. I apologize for that. My bad. In attendance, we have Peter Murray, Rich DeGrandpré, and Kate Werner. Dennis King is unavailable tonight, so he will not be here. The first action on the agenda is to waive the reading of the minutes and accept them as written for the meeting on May 1st, 2014.
So moved.
Second. Thank you. Okay. Any discussion? Looks good to everybody? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. And that's done. So the second is just to review our meeting on May 8th and talk about what's going to happen next. So on May 8th, we met with the RSU 5 working group. And we had a very productive beginning to the meeting where we began, where we checked off of our list a number of the outstanding issues that we hadn't TA'd the first time. So we got TAs on, I've forgotten whether it was 4 or 5 additional issues.
5 or 6, I thought.
And that was with some back and forth, and we had both parties had their attorneys present, so we were able to work on the language and get that perfected and then TA it. So just in case anybody's not familiar, that's the process that we're using to get through the negotiations, is to write and address individual sections of the agreement, the legal document that we're authoring together, and then capture agreement about individual sections in what are called tentative agreements. So we sign individual sections indicating that we tentatively agree to them, but each party has the right in the context of the entire agreement to say, actually, we're not comfortable with the whole thing. And it's a way to kind of get some momentum so you don't have to, get your head around the entire agreement in one go. And that seems to be working relatively well with respect to some of the mechanical pieces of the agreement, and we got pretty good traction. The momentum stopped when we put on the table the clause outlining the grandfathering, which we had talked about and agreed in general to.
Actually, we gave it to them in writing.
And we had given it to them in writing in prior iterations. And they expressed that they weren't comfortable negotiating about the grandfathering or agreeing to the grandfathering until such time as we had agreed upon the other enrollment commitment issues on the table. So they wouldn't agree to that. So that's where we left that for the moment. We then entered into a period of dialogue about the enrollment commitments, and there's some I don't know how to talk about it, but we went back and forth and tried to describe positions and different options and understand what other options might exist. And the nub of it is that there is a state requirement separate from the withdrawal law that any school unit has to have a 10-year commitment. Any school unit that doesn't have a high school inside of it has to have a 10-year commitment to take any student that may not have another place to go. Has to have some high school that is the so-called, people refer to it as a school of record. The DOE doesn't use that term. They talk about it as a school that is committed for 10 years to take any particular student. And the issue arose because there have been cases where there have been groups of students, and there have been no schools around that said that they had capacity to take them or wanted to take them, and so that's been an awkward position. So they created this law back in 2007, and every school since then has had a high school where that is obligated to take any student that comes. So
this came out of the SAD withdrawal program. That's where that need came, because in 2007 we weren't negotiating these.
And and so because Freeport is proposing to withdraw, and because Freeport has the high school, it then places this obligation on the RSU to find a school of record or a school with a 10-year commitment, and that's the question that's on the table is, will the new Freeport SAU, they are requesting that the new Freeport SAU be the school of record for all or any of the students in the RSU, the remaining RSU, and the Freeport Withdrawal Committee has the position that we don't have the capacity to take any and all of the students without expanding our high school, which would be an onerous burden on the Freeport taxpayers based on tuition coming in attached to the students. So it doesn't make any sense, and therefore we weren't able to get beyond that. So those are the two positions that and summarized, and I hope I've tried to summarize them accurately and objectively. But that's where we ended the evening after a couple of backs and forths on that. And essentially, I think we've said that we would be willing to discuss a commitment for some number of students, but we can't commit to take any and all of the students in RSU 5 because we just don't have the capacity to do so. And committing to take any and all of the students on the hope and the prayer that they don't all show up wouldn't make any sense. So, from our perspective, so we're of the opinion that there are other options around in the local area, and that these other options are have plenty of capacity and are willing to step into that role, and that's where we ended the night.
I would add that I think that the data has shown that we have maximum capacity at the high school of 500. That's pretty tight, and that the projections have said from the renovation projections have been around 650, 660. And the town study said 708 potentially for the top of the bubble. So we're talking about a significant amount over capacity. Just wanted to add that.
And I'd just even add to that even though the building's capacity may be technically 500, when you talk about ratios of toilets to kids and other things like that, the capacity of the program may be less than that, right? If we think it may be that the optimal way to run the program at the high school might be 450 or 475 or some other number, and that adding more kids onto that means a higher number of kids in every classroom, or other hires and expenses that need to be undertaken that wouldn't otherwise be done, and therefore capacity is a number that there's a technical physical capacity, but then there's also, I think, a program capacity that we need to be aware of as we talk about these things as well. So,
and whatever we agree to is going to bind this school potentially
for 10 years.
For 10 years, and there's no reason why a school board couldn't take more kids ultimately if that was what they decided to do. But we'd like to leave that in their hands.
Remember, what we're talking about is a commitment to do these things, and so we can always expand in any given year and do more than what we're committed to, but we're not permitted to do less than what we're committed to. So to commit us to an potentially unbounded number of students is something that we're not prepared to undertake. So anyway, that's like where that was left, and we agreed that we would adjourn for the evening and come back again, which is a week from yesterday. Next Wednesday night at the library, and take another run at it, and that each party would go away and think on what the information we exchanged and the ideas we'd exchanged, and see if we could come up with some creative thinking on it.
I think it's interesting here in the information sent out by the working group. When under what's new, it says that both groups have agreed at a minimum to grandfather all the Powell students currently in 4th grade or higher and Durham students in 7th grade or higher. Yet they didn't actually TA that. So I don't know what they.
I think they must have meant we agree in principle, but we don't actually have a TA on that language. But although we've tried a couple
and
times.
We've been talking about this for a month now, so it's not something that's brand new. I know that Michelle indicated that she really didn't want to talk about that. She wanted to talk about the 10-year commitment. So Anyway, not to put more on that, but when you start talking about programming, it's no different than a business or what have you. As you add, as you construct a high school education, putting the programming will be assembled by the new school board if we decide to withdraw, and I don't want to tie their hands going forward to some number of kids that you may not have the space to program for. And I think it's critical that we don't sign up the town of Freeport for a building project to tuition kids into, because that's a fool's errand.
Any other comments about that evening? And the next step is we're going to be meeting them. We're currently planning to meet them again, and we will be bringing attorneys to the next meeting as well. And I think that Michelle and I exchanged verbal agreement about that, and I'll write an email to confirm. But
and that's Wednesday, the 21st at 6:30 in the Freeport High School Library.
Yeah.
Did you ever get confirmation from Shannon on the communication she had with Brunswick? The subject got changed. She claimed to have something and was shuffling papers, but did she ever reply to that question?
I think that the latest communication I've had with Shannon on this topic indicates that Brunswick is discussing among themselves what their final position is on this stuff.
I was just
That's
curious.
all I got from her. I mean, I don't know specifics beyond that.
Okay, thanks.
I think that there's a lot of concern among people. I'm hearing, I don't know what you guys are hearing in the community. People nervous it's taken too long. People upset about the article in the paper that it looks like a log jam. People,
It would be
trying
helpful.
to take actions in their own hands and calling people and writing emails and so forth. And I think that from our perspective, I feel like this is not a totally unexpected situation to be in, and that we need to have a certain amount of patience to allow these ideas to mature and things to move forward. And while I think we're all frustrated that this is taking as long as it is, and that things are not as clear as they might be expected, you might have expected them to be by now. I think we still need to give it a little more time. We still have time. We still have plenty of time to get this done in time for a November vote. Everybody's shooting for a November vote. Nobody wants to go beyond that, at this stage, and everybody's working towards that. I think it's so I would just encourage folks to try to breathe deep and be a little patient with this for a little longer as we're working it, because we're working it hard and everybody's working it as best we can, and just a little bit more patience and we'll hopefully get this thing done. So.
Yeah, I would. The only other comment I have on what they're reading in the paper is it's really too bad that our last two meetings with the working group, the reporter who wrote the article wasn't in the room.
Yeah.
So I would encourage folks who have an interest in this to please come and see the dynamics, see it work. I mean, it's not the problem that gets described in the paper, I guess.
It's a little different. I mean, it's the I think that everybody understands the business of papers, right? And they need people to read them. And one way to get them to read them is to talk about things that are exciting and salacious, and not to talk about things that are kind of, well, hey, all right, everything's fine here. And so the parts of the meeting that are actually cooperative, really moving forward and working smoothly, are not reported on, and it's the part where it's where we're disagreeing that's getting reported on more thoroughly. So I think it's a good point, Rich, that that's only part of the picture. So, all right, anything else on that? Let's move on to public comment. We got a couple public folks here. What do we got going on, guys?
I just wanted more clarity around those numbers and how many kids you were trying to place. Or what are we thinking? There are
For the
for
record,
numbers.
just say your name and
Oh,
town
hi.
resident, sorry.
I'm Lori Gier from Freeport, and I'm curious about the numbers. One, about how many we have to place and whether they could be divided up differently.
So the number that we have to play, let's just be clear. The RSU has to ultimately find a high school for all of its kids, and one of the goals that they have talked about is having as much flexibility and options, as many options as they can for effectively having a lot of choice, right? So that they could have a menu to pick from. The number of kids varies by year, of course, and it's currently round about 200 is a rough number that's used when you talk about the RSU 5 student body, high school student body. And then there's about 45 Pownell Middle School kids as well who are currently, they would be going into the Freeport Middle School.
And when we talked about grandfathering, we've already said we have that capacity here, and it's ongoing. So if that wouldn't be an issue going forward. So if that would help them in their work, trying to figure out what to do.
We have offered essentially that every kid that is in a Freeport school in the year after the withdrawal becomes official, we would grandfather them throughout their career through the high school. And so we would experience every year a declining number of those kids if we only got the grandfathered kids, right? They would go, every year we graduate a class and we wouldn't matriculate a new class, and it would be smaller every year. But the question then is there an opportunity for additional kids, or is there a commitment to make room for additional kids from RSU 5 that could attend? And we're willing to talk about that. And so when they write that the numbers are unknown for next to Freeport, we actually have put some numbers on the table, and we haven't agreed them or even really talked about them. We have mentioned some numbers, and so I guess they put it unknown because there's nothing in writing about it.
It is not unknown, because not only do we have discussion around them, there are a lot of questions about that. So they have a pretty good understanding. This is, again, I don't know if they produced this or who did, but the realities about where kids go come down in many cases. Even if a community gets choice back, unless every high school student has to provide their own transportation, if the community's going to provide transportation somehow, there'll be a fair number of the students from that community will be going to probably one school. Whether they all go to the same school or different schools or whatever, that's yet to be determined. But transportation does become a factor, because not every household has the ability to transport kids to different schools. So getting choice back is an option. And as we've asked the question around the state of Maine, that has happened. There are communities who have withdrawn, and folks within the school unit, some of the communities got choice back, so the kids did have choice. So, but one of the realities, I guess, comes back to transportation.
But there can be one school that has the 10-year contract. If they don't have, they have capacity for all the kids, they can sign on the 10-year contract as that school of record, so to speak, and then the kids could have choice to go other places as capacity was available. It could be Freeport, it could be Yarmouth, it could be Greeley, it could be, there would be some choice involved once that 10-year contract school is in place, depending on how many kids they're requiring to attend, which it doesn't sound like there's a lot of requirements for attendance at the schools at this point as far as what offers are coming in. But then they would have some options as far as where they wanted to attend school, including Freeport.
I think that we have to be careful here, because I think we have a tendency to want to talk about this obligation with respect to the 10-year commitment as being something that we have to solve, and it has to get solved, but it's not an obligation on Freeport to solve that problem. We could be part of that solution, and we've offered to be part of that solution. We can't be the entire solution, and I think that it's ultimately the RSU's decision and obligation to find that contracted school. And it has to be a school that's willing and able to take them. Right? So this is the nub of the reason why we stopped discussion for that evening.
And even if a school does agree that they have capacity and are willing to take them, unless they have a requirement that a certain number do attend, as long as there is a backstop school, if you will, the kids can still go wherever the community wants them to go, wherever the RSU wants them to go. So,
Okay, well, thanks.
I don't know if that helps.
Anything else?
I was just trying to get caught up. I've been talking to Rich a bit, so. But I guess I will. I don't know, with Scott Gleason, Park Street. So, with the understanding that we have enough students for 40 or 50, which one could think that could take care of Pownell. I think what you were saying, Rich, that you could, for grandfather to a point, and actually it doesn't even sound like there's necessarily an end point.
Let me clarify.
Yeah.
In our conversation, you asked me about students, and I said, Pownell students, if they start here in 6th grade, we'll have continuing capacity in middle school. A lot of times, students are looking for continuing education. That you start down that trail with one, if you will, philosophy about education. So the amount of kids, which is about 15 kids in a class, there is capacity for those kids to stay through high school. And I think that when we looked at our capacity ongoing, there's capacity for that number of students ongoing and some others, but we don't know what that number is.
Yeah.
So
it would be a commitment to the RSU for whatever block that would be.
That's correct.
So Brunswick being potentially the other school, and do we know if there's been a commitment from Brunswick or not? It's not official. Has there been talk?
We don't know the answer to that. We've asked them, and we got the answer that no, that there was no commitment from them in our last round of negotiations. We're hearing other things from other people. It's very confusing, and I don't want to add to that confusion by putting more out there. It's going to be solidified in time, but right now the official answer from the RSU negotiating committee is that there's not an offer from Brunswick.
But if there was, with that as far as all I'm more curious about is this a potential roadblock to the whole entire process that you guys are going through, or in other words, you feel, I believe your extension's till June, is it June?
June 30th. Yep.
Do you have any concerns about hitting that deadline?
We do, and they'll grant us another extension if necessary. I mean, this is
The DOE?
I talked with Paula Graval about this, and she basically said, "I'll be surprised if you get it done by June 30th." And I said, "I think we're going to get it done by June 30th," and I still think we're going to get it done by June 30th.
Okay.
But the answer is yes. Of course, this could complicate getting that done, and what we're trying to do is express that we're ready to talk creatively about solutions to this situation. And that we're willing to be at the table and help be a part of the solution for the RSU, but that we can't underwrite the whole thing. That's kind of our position. We're trying to be creative about it. We're ready to talk. We suggested at the meeting, let's get Brunswick in here. Let's all three of us talk together and figure it out. And so we continue to be open to that kind of an idea. Let's try and work the problem, but we're not getting a lot of receptivity to those kinds of ideas yet, and hopefully things will open up.
The flyer that was provided Monday says that as far as Brunswick is concerned, in the high school that they have provided a proposal to take all the students in high school. Middle school, it says unsure. In the comments it says they provided a proposal for as many high school students as wanted to attend, as well as sharing central office functions. So that's I think all we have in writing at this point.
I mean, if you think about
is this their document?
Yes.
This is their document. If you think about the backdrop, you've got a school system in Brunswick who is has a school that was 5 years ago had 1,200 kids in it,
Right.
and now it has 780 or something like that in there. And so that's in 5 years. So they have significant physical capacity and program capacity to handle all of these kids. They just finished paying off a 20-year bond on a high school renovation expansion project that they planned for using the Durham population enrollment projections as part of their plan, because Durham kids were going through that high school at that time, and they planned it. So there's capacity there. That said, again, reminding this is I don't want people to hear that and say I'm prescribing things for the RSU to do or anything like that, because there's a sensitivity to that, Freeport is prescribing things that the RSU should do. All I know is that it's a resource, it's in the neighborhood, and it can help fulfill this obligation, could be a part of the solution. Yep. Great, thanks Scott for coming. Thanks Laura. Anything else, Laura?
No.
All good?
Good.
All right, guys, then I'll entertain a motion to enter into executive session to talk with our counsel who has just arrived.
Thanks for coming.
That's good to go.
So moved, I guess.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great, we'll take a quick break and I'll shut the recording off.
Yeah,
Thank
pick
you
up the
very
pace,
much.
Scott.